Hello, beloveds, and welcome to the Black Mirror Oracle. Today, as I was scrying the Black Mirror, the first thing that I saw was a bunch of shattered clay cups. But instead of water or anything, they were pouring out light. And this light was like dripping out onto the pavement and just disappearing. Okay. The second is that a person hands another person a pill, and the person who takes the pill shrinks. So the feeling I got from this is like it's a hard pill to swallow, or the idea of like almost Alice in Wonderland, where something that somebody gives her decides whether she grows bigger or smaller. So the overall feeling I got from this was the idea of other people's containers can't necessarily hold your fullness. So let's see what the Oracle is going to say about that. And then at the end, we will do a channeled tarot reading for you. So first, this idea of vessels being shattered. So, with that, I think a lot about that because shattered vessels has a lot to do with the Kabbalistic tree of life. And if you're interested in that, I do a whole series about it, and I do Kabbalistic astrology. But the reason that internal vessels shatter, so your emotions, your mind, blah, 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 is because too much is poured in and you can't handle it, so you have a breakdown or something like that. So here I'm saying like your vessels were whole and solid and full of such a beautiful light, and someone came along who shattered them. Or maybe you made decisions that shattered them because you didn't know any better because of stuff other people taught you. And then I get the impression with the pill, like I said, it's a hard pill to swallow that maybe you contributed to it. Not because of anything that you did specifically, but maybe for not removing yourself from a situation soon enough. And there's no blame here. We do what we can when we can. But also the idea that maybe you accepted someone's behavior that ended up making you feel smaller. Once again, it's not your fault. Their behavior is not your responsibility. But there's a point where you have to say, oh my gosh, I don't want to be small anymore. And a lot of times it just takes time to realize that you've grown smaller because of these kinds of energies. This card is... It wants to come out, but it doesn't want to come out. All right, let's get started with your oracles. A garden inside. Ooh, I want you to really think about that in context. You are not just a garden inside. You are a universe inside. You are whole. Your vessels, your internal vessels to hold emotion and the grandness and the beauty of life is incomprehensible. But someone is over here starving you of water, making you smaller, making your garden barren. And you can choose to cut that person off because you actually have the natural flow to keep your garden alive, right? You can stop feeding that other person and pouring all of your water into them so that you can keep them in your own vessels, and only allow people who don't make you shrink, only allow people who are not going to dump their emotional stuff onto you until you crack, right? This theme has been coming up a lot lately, so I'm really feeling that it needs to happen. Okay, so here we have this in your shadow card. I picked 2 shadow cards for you today. We have a sort of a merry-go-round, and there are children riding on it. But instead of horses and stuff, there are kind of different dark monsters. So in the shadow space with this, it's the idea that you are fun and playful, and you've even done a lot of your shadow work, if not maybe even felt like you were close to individuating, but that you're held back because you invite other people who are not as far as you, and this doesn't mean better or worse, just not as far as you, into your inner sanctum. And by doing that, it slows your own momentum. It slows your own momentum. It can rot your garden, can make you smaller if you swallow their pills, right? Obviously, the pills here are a metaphor. Look at that. Your other shadow card. There's a sort of a wasteland, an inner wasteland, you know, like this is like clay, you know, barren and cracked clay, like your vessels that we saw earlier. Going over the rainbow, so transmuting into this beautiful landscape. But the person in this card keeps looking behind because they're worried, did I lose something? Did I miss something? So if this has to do with another person, be it family, romantic, whatever, who has been draining you, who has been bullying you. Remember, bullying can look like so many things. Some people are really, really good at subtle bullying. And when that happens, you might not even clock that anything went wrong. And on top of that, especially if it's a family member who you've been around your entire life, it will be built into your system. So it'll feel completely normal, but you'll also feel like an instinct inside that something's kind of off. So in this card, the rider of this white horse moving over from this barren land over the rainbow into this beautiful, lush landscape keeps looking back. Because maybe your nervous system isn't ready for, or it feels uncomfortable to be healthy. Doesn't make it wrong. But if your garden starts blooming for you, there's a lot you've got to face inside. When you were able to externalize it by saying, oh, I've only been small because someone else made me small. Yes, they did. But now are you willing to step out of that and take full responsibility for what happens next? It can be really scary. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. This is the first time I've used this deck, and to pull the Morrigan, who I adore, who I consider my mother. It's three sisters, battle, overcoming obstacles. You can call on this death goddess, if you are called to, obviously, to help you cut out not just people who are using you or harming you or breaking you up, breaking you into pieces. You can call on her to help pull you back together. Her archetype is the warrior who does not stop like cutting out the crap, right? She, the crows are, I only use the Murder of Crows tarot deck in these readings. So the Morrigan here is calling for you to stand in your own power and sovereignty, even if it feels broken. Because remember, as the goddess of battle and death and things like that, she understands that these death and rebirths are part of the natural process. And that a lot of times we're so off balance that we have to break things down, death card style in the tarot, to get a rebirth. Because sometimes these systems within our subconscious minds, or these systems within our world, have been built on a broken foundation. And so sometimes you have to tear it down to the foundation to rebuild something healthy. So I'm feeling an urge to pull a Memento Mori card, and then one of these other storytelling cards. Wow. So the Morrigan, has a message of liberation. And, we think so much about liberation in sort of the peaceful Buddhist sense, right? But sometimes liberation is a woman or a man or non-binary person kicking and screaming their way running off into the sunset, screaming to get out of a situation where someone's making them smaller. Now, I tend to try to avoid confrontation when I can, but I'm not going to avoid confrontation to the point that I'm damaging myself. If it's a little thing, whatever. Or if like it feels dangerous and I'm just extracting myself from a situation, I'm not going to confront that person. But when it comes to like somebody making you smaller, someone taking your light, boundary, no. I feel like there was a Black Mirror oracle a few weeks back that was all about no as a boundary and about how maybe you've struggled with that boundary. We've got rewind and trust. Yeah, trust yourself, trust the process. Remember that extinguishing these patterns and transmuting them and building them on a stronger foundation is not an easy process. Your vessels have been broken. You have to build them. You have to put them back together. Your heart may have been a wasteland, right? Your heart may have been a wasteland. And maybe your relationships have been a battlefield, you know, with the Morrigan and that, but you're trying to transmute this battlefield into a garden. And if that means letting go of certain people, or if it's in a certain situation, you have to gray wall somebody. If you're not familiar with that, it just means like not emotionally interact with a certain person if you have to like interact with them anyway. This, you know, once again, this is so funny. I've got these decks and the exact same cards keep coming up. I'm like, there's like 100 cards in these decks I've never even seen. But so this card to me always reminds me, it's like a big clear mirror, but it looks kind of like, oh, I'm sorry if I hit the mic there. This card always makes me think of like the Rumi quote, if you want a clear mirror, behold yourself and see the shameless truth which the mirror reflects. So really look at yourself and say, am I making myself smaller because someone else is being pressured? And then of course we have this butterfly all about transmutation. So look back with this rewind and reset, rewind and reset card. Yeah, it's time for you to say, where did you let your garden slowly become neglected because you started putting your energy towards other people whose stuff is always more important than yours? It's not. It's not. Like I said, if you have a vulnerable person or a child or something under, yeah, that's different. But I'm talking about relationships where people are just siphoning off your energy. You deserve better than that. So you're working on transmutation. You know, this with this butterfly image, this looking in the clear mirror image, the Morrigan coming in to help you kick ass, this garden, and then this horse is about to go over the rainbow, right? Well, I guess we'll just start with these cards. You know, you're on the verge of this if you haven't started already. So yes, you know, the Morrigan, a lot of people are scared to work with her. So do not just go willy-nilly working with her if you're not. But when it comes to the archetype of the Morrigan, you are ready for righteous battle. Righteous battle is loving yourself. Righteous battle is not giving everyone everything that they ask for just because they asked. I talk a lot about how humility can be used as a tool of control, right? Humility can be used as a tool of control because we're told that humility means basically being a doormat to people. That's not what humility is. Humility is kindness. Humility is grace. Humility is helping when you can and not overinflating yourself. But at the same time, you're allowed to take credit for what you do, and you're allowed to hold a boundary. In fact, it is a great mercy to hold a boundary, not just a mercy to you, but a mercy to the other person. Because when you don't hold a boundary, oh, hello, this card just flew out. When you don't hold a boundary with a person and you enable that bad behavior, then it's not your fault. But if you can't hold the boundary for yourself, hold it for them. because it's not good for their soul to be able to trample people's boundaries, right? And I know a lot of people who like maybe love someone so much that they can't seem to hold the boundary because they don't want to hurt the other person. And it helped them to say, oh, actually, I am hurting them by letting them walk all over me, because that teaches them that they can be a worse and worse person. Okay, let's get started on your channel reading, beloved. You remember feeling such a childlike beauty and wonder for the world. And you had so much that you were looking forward to, beloved. And all these dreams about love, about your career, and you were slowly building towards that. You felt like you were really building a solid foundation. But then somebody or some situation came in and started really weighing you down. And when this happened, you felt like it happened really slowly and subtly, but it kind of cut into your mind and kind of flip-flopped your view of reality until this person or situation became the center, and you would move around them no matter what was going on. It was a very confusing time. You would pour everything into them, but it would never be enough, right? And eventually you started to realize, after this weight was pressed down on you for so long, that this was making you feel small, that you were being forced to swallow a bitter pill, one that made you forget the wonder that you had before, the excitement. You have so much like queen energy in this. And with the star, so basically you felt really empowered. Remember, no genders, just energies. You felt really empowered and at the top of your physical and emotional, like you had a fire for life. But this diminished that feeling and replaced it with confusion. And it was because you were only pouring in and no one was pouring in back to you. They kept giving you these subtle twists to keep your mind kind of in a rut. So as you're moving through this, and you're going to be slicing away this energy to get back into the non-distorted queen energy here, you're going to land in the star. You are the star of your life. You are the main character. Don't relegate yourself to be someone's sidekick. Especially because the kind of people who want you to do that, they aren't going to be worth all that, right? They might convince you that you being their sidekick is the best thing that's ever going to happen to you, but it's not. The best thing that's ever going to happen to you is rising into your own star energy of feeling the peace, the peace that will bring you back to fascination with life, right? The peace after the destruction, when your house of cards has fallen. And I talked earlier about now you have to rebuild it with a stronger foundation so that no one can come and just flip it upside down on you anymore, because you'll be so stable in yourself. And with this moon energy and this shadow work energy, beloved, you are facing this in yourself. You aren't just saying, this person did this to me. You're saying, what in myself allowed this? Not taking responsibility for anyone else's actions. You only take responsibility for your own. But what in me is broken that energetically connects to someone who would treat me that way? Let me Step away from all of this. Heal that. Build a strong foundation from scratch. If someone makes you think or pushes a narrative that you'll never find another person like them, that nobody can, that's not going to be a healthy person, right? Healthy people don't need to say that. Healthy people give you space when you need it. Healthy people aren't afraid to lose you because they know if you're the right person, you're going to come back once you've done your healing, and they'll understand that. So I would never, ever, ever blame anybody for someone else's behavior. But I know that you are here and you want to see the truth. And the truth is that there's some shadow work you need to do before you get too involved with another person. You need to, like I said, rebuild that foundation. This is what I've got for you today. Let me just pull a random, I'm just going to split the deck here. I trust myself in making great decisions. So trust yourself. Trust your intuition. If someone's been making you small, you might have stopped trusting your intuition and been like, oh, they don't mean anything by it. Oh, I can handle them pouring more into me. And then suddenly you find your light being poured out and your vessel shattered. Okay, beloveds, you're doing wonderfully. I'll see you next time.